Hello, everyone. I want to talk about the 2022 Elvis movie that's out called Elvis. Not a very original title, but I suppose it says what has to be said, right? There was also a movie in the late 1970s called Elvis with Kurt Russell made for television. But all right, I digress. So, anyway, I have another channel. Some of you know, some of you may not know. The channel is called Mean Mr. Mayo. And if you check out the Mean Mr. Mayo channel, you'll see that when the movie first came out, I did a review and a discussion on it with people. That was about 28 minutes long, something like that. So if you want to go over to my channel, you'll get a lot more input from me than I'm going to do here. But I wanted to do just a regular movie review video for this channel, my movie channel, and it's going to be a lot more condensed. But the reason I'm doing it also is because my views on some of it have changed a little bit. I've learned things since I did the first review, and I'd say my review now isn't as glowing as it was the first time. Okay, overall, I thought this movie was a good movie, an enjoyable movie. I thought overall it captured the essence of Elvis Presley, more or less, probably more than less. But there were things that were wrong with it, okay? The more that I'm understanding. And I had some inkling in the beginning when I first saw it that things weren't really 100% accurate. But we'll get to that as I go along. Now, let's start with Austin Butler. Austin Butler, when I first saw his picture, I thought, this guy doesn't look enough like Elvis. This isn't going to really cut it for me. This guy doesn't convince me that he's Elvis. Whereas, say, somebody like Kurt Russell, who did the television movie in the late 70s, seemed to look like Elvis, you know? You have to believe the person's Elvis. Well, I got to say, once you hear Austin Butler speak in Elvis's voice, and also he sings in this movie too and does a good job of singing. The movie has Austin Butler singing the Elvis songs, but also utilizes some actual real Elvis recordings, by the way, so it's mixed. I was sold. I think Austin Butler also got Elvis's mannerisms down very well. I believed I was watching Elvis Presley. And there were times, especially later on in the Vegas-y scenes, when I thought to myself, oh, is this real footage of Elvis? Or, oh no, it's Austin Butler. So he did have me convinced. And I think he's going to be nominated for an award, probably. He's probably going to receive it, too. Let's talk now a little about Tom Hanks, who plays his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. And this movie is told kind of from the perspective of the Colonel. Now, they do that approach in the beginning of the movie a lot, and a lot of narration and voiceover from Tom Hanks as Parker. And I thought, oh, I hope this whole movie isn't going to go this route. Fortunately, as the movie progresses, they lose a lot of that narration of the Colonel. It comes back and forth and is handy at times to hear it, but it doesn't become overly intrusive. Now, I have a problem with Tom Hanks' accent, which I didn't really cover in the last video on the other channel. And you going into this, I had heard clips, his voice in clips, and I thought, this doesn't sound like Colonel Tom Parker from what I know. I mean, I've seen interviews with Colonel Parker, and I just didn't think that this strange accent from Tom Hanks sounded like Parker. Some Elvis experts have told me, no. Actually, the Colonel did, in fact, speak that way. That's the way he talked. Okay. I don't know if he just put on another accent, a little more Southern sounding or whatnot when he was in public for interviews. I don't know. But I didn't like the accent. Let's leave it that way. And whereas I was a little bit more positive about Tom Hanks' performance originally, now, after thinking about it for a few weeks, I don't think it was really anything that great. It was okay. I think that maybe Tom Hanks' performance as Colonel Tom Parker actually helped bounce off Austin Butler and make him better. Okay, the director of this film is Baz Luhrmann, and I knew nothing about Baz Luhrmann going in. The name didn't even occur to me. But I could tell as I watched the movie that especially the first half of it is really kind of fast and furious, cutting and all over the place and this kind of thing. And I usually despise that technique in modern movies. And then I found out later that Luhrmann actually has this as his trademark. This is part of his style. Well, because I didn't know it in the beginning going into it, I didn't prejudge it. And I'll tell you, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that intrusive in this case. It kind of worked. This is rock and roll after all. This is excitement, the early Presley days, and especially the scenes in the 1950s. And I thought, well, this actually is okay. It didn't harm it any. The movie itself is about 2 hours and 40 minutes long. There is, I'm told, a 4-hour cut, and the 4-hour cut probably would have a lot more uh, elements of Elvis's life and career that we could have dealt with, because there's a problem there that I have with the movie, and that is that, as usual, there are a lot of artistic and dramatic liberties taken here. Why do they have to do that? Why do they have to do that? And there are also inaccuracies. I mean, I'll tell you, folks, I refused to see Bohemian Rhapsody, the Queen movie. Well, first of all, because I'm not interested in the group Queen at all, but also because I heard it was largely inaccurate. I don't want to go to see a biopic and it's not accurate. And there's people who excuse it away. They say, oh, you should know going in that this is not going to be 100% accurate. This is what they do when they make biopics. You have to accept that. I'm not going to accept it. And the reason I don't accept it is because I think that in celebrities' lives, they're already plenty dramatic and plenty interesting and have a lot of plot twists and turns and excitement in their true life stories without having to make things up or delete things or omit certain details. I heard the same thing was true of the movie Rocket Man about Elton John, and I didn't see Rocket Man for the same reason, although I do like Elton John quite a bit, unlike Queen. So I don't really like to invest my time in these movies because of that. Now, there were a lot of things I knew as I was watching this were wrong. I'm not the biggest Elvis expert. I'm not any Elvis expert, really. I'm a fan, but not a huge fan. And I'm watching the movie, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right. I don't think that happened, or this didn't happen that way. They have things like Elvis yelling at his manager on stage and firing him on stage, and that never happened. They got to make it dramatic. Wouldn't that have been dramatic enough if they had the argument like it really happened behind the scenes? Then I heard things like, I don't know if it's true or not, but later on I discovered that Elvis's manager actually was not fired. He actually quit. And then details like that, you see. One thing that really, really annoyed me about the movie was they do all right up until they get Elvis going into the army, in the early days in the 50s. But then when he comes out of the army, Elvis is like, the colonel's going to make me a big Hollywood star in the movies. And the thing is, he had already made movies. They didn't really give me the feeling that Elvis had made movies. Why didn't they show you him shooting his first movie, Love Me Tender? Why didn't they show you him, I don't know, maybe a clip from Jailhouse Rock, maybe him doing the Jailhouse Rock dance sequence, with the other inmates from the film. That was a big scene. They could have recreated moments of that. And then they just zip right through the 1960s. Once he comes out of the army, it's like zoop. They go from 1960 to 1968 comeback when he gets on TV and reinvents himself. They zip over those 8 years like they didn't even exist. Zoop. They have one montage in there where they show you a whole bunch of quick cutting clips of all his movies in the corner all over the place. Comedy bits that last a minute or less. I don't know where this is supposed to be his movie career. Him just different images on the screen. Seeing him sitting on the truck from, I guess it's Double Trouble when he sang Old MacDonald at a farm. And you see him, race car uniform and all this kind of stuff. Now, I really think they should have spent some time showing Elvis the actor, showed him maybe, simulate a scene where he's on the set and, I don't know, he's with the director and he's like not really comfortable because these movies are kind of cheesy, and really show his disenchantment with these films and how he wishes he could be out there again. Maybe show a sequence where he hears about the Beatles in 1964 and 65 or 6 and realizing that the Beatles, not just because I'm a huge Beatles fan, but in general it would have helped the story. Elvis saying, the Beatles are taking over the world. People like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones are taking over the world, and I'm here stuck making these movies. I mean, if only I could get out of this contract. Just a passing word. Before anybody says it, and they will say it, they're going to say, well, what do you want, the movie to be 10 hours long? I don't think any of these additions that I'm asking for would have really took more than like 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes screen time altogether. It wouldn't have taken a lot of screen time just to cover these bases and check these boxes. So I didn't like the way they did that. Another problem that I had is that as the film progresses, and in real life, in real life, Elvis, his health deteriorated. He started to look pretty stoned and out of it, even in the mid 70s, and he gained a lot of weight. We know this, and they seem to sidestep the weight issue. Austin Butler looked pretty much svelte and through the whole thing, and there he is. One scene in particular where Elvis is sitting with Priscilla, and he's saying, I'm going to be 40 years old, Priscilla, and this and that. And that's like 1975. And he looks like Elvis did 1956. I mean, I don't see. They didn't even try to make him look like really over the top obese or anything. And I understand they're trying to protect Elvis's legacy. The powers that be never want to show Elvis that way. They never want to see him looking overweight. They never want to show you his last televised concert. They kind of hide that. They don't want to release that formally and big and do it up. They never want to acknowledge too much that Elvis was really in bad shape the last few years of his life. So I don't like that they kind of went through that. Now, I will say, though, that the movie did redeem itself at the end, I mean, they didn't even really talk about Elvis's drug use enough. They did show you he was kind of fading. They did pay lip service to it. Yeah, Elvis is having a problem here. He's kind of detached now. He's kind of lost. You get that feeling a little bit, but they didn't really play up on it big enough to make it factual. I think I'm not saying you got to insult the guy and make his fans feel bad, or or roast them alive. But the thing is, you really should have at least covered it for accuracy's sake. But they did. The film does redeem itself, because at the very, very end, I thought the end was very classily done in a classy way. They really did show for a little bit at the end, when you see Elvis, real footage of Elvis singing Unchained Melody, and showing that even then, the King, even though he was out of shape and he was fading, the King always had that great voice. And you get to see that wonderful scene with him on the piano playing Unchained Melody. They intercut scenes of Austin Butler at the end, finally, with some overweight makeup on Austin. You finally get to see Austin Butler as Elvis out of shape at the very end, and it's expertly intercut with actual real scenes of Elvis singing his heart out. So that really worked really nice. And then I love the end credits. The end credits were so wonderfully done, because they decided to take a lot of photos and images of the real Elvis Presley and kind of do a collage. And that was done in real good taste, and we remember the real Elvis at the end. I love the way they did that. Now, it sounds like all I've been doing is bashing this movie, but what I'm trying to do is, if you see my original take after I just saw it over on my other channel, I really was a little bit too positive. Here I sound a little too negative. It's somewhere in the middle. I think if you see this movie, it's a good movie, not great movie. On a scale of 4 stars, I would give Elvis 3 out of 4 stars. It's a good movie, not a great movie. And I think Austin Butler does keep you involved, and does kind of encapsulate the feeling of the real Elvis Presley. So you do get a good performance, and you feel like you're watching Elvis. I just feel there were too many things missing, and too many things, faked. I mean, the 68 comeback, when you watch the 1968 comeback scene, for example, I mean, all Elvis's moves are perfect by Austin Butler when he's singing and performing. However, they made it look like this whole thing about Elvis has to wear a Christmas sweater, and the Colonel's upset because I want you to wear the sweater and all this. That's all exaggerated and prolonged artistic, dramatic liberties that you didn't really need, So that's one example. I watched videos after I saw the movie where they kind of showed you top 10 things that the Elvis movie got right, and top 10 things they got wrong. And then it kind of affected my feeling on the movie more. Okay, so I thought if you want to see a movie that makes you feel like you're kind of watching a story of Elvis and with a good performance, great. It's a good movie to enjoy, and you'll feel it. But I have to take it down a notch or two because of the way they left so much stuff out and changed things around. Um, that's all I really got to say about the movie. I had a good time with it, but it could have been so much better. One last thing I wanted to say. People have been asking me, is there any modern music in this? Because I was relieved to find I only heard rap music. I can't stand rap. They had rap music in the credits, at the end of the credits. First, you hear Elvis singing, I think it was In the Ghetto, if I remember. In the Ghetto was done perfectly. It was great to have that in the credits. But after he sings In the Ghetto, you get rap. And they're trying to appeal to modern audiences, and that stuff sucks. I don't even know why rap is still a thing. Rap had its real heyday. 40 years ago or something, 30 years ago. I mean, anyway, then people later told me actually there's modern music inside with Jack White in the actual movie itself that I didn't notice. I only saw the movie once, so I missed it. It went over my head. So if there was, people told me there was some rap music in the actual film that I missed. Put it this way, folks: if you don't like rap music and you don't want it in there, if I couldn't notice it during the actual course of the film itself, then I guess it wasn't that intrusive. That's my thoughts. Take care.